There is nothing worse in this world than a dishonorable, unhonest piece of shit as a whole. There's just nothing in this world. And with that, let's check out Lex Fridman's most recent clip.
You had this conversation you put on your Substack with Jordan Peterson about cognitive inequality. I think it's titled Wrestling with Cognitive Inequality. Yeah. This particular topic of just IQ differences between groups. Why is it so dangerous to talk about? Why this particular topic?
It's literally like he's standing here like interviewing somebody for CNN. Like that's kind of like what it feels like. It's like, why is this so dangerous to have this conversation? Right? Like he's fucking Chris Cuomo asking some like government individual and like setting up somebody for a fucking question that, you know what I mean, like they already motherfucking had the answer to. Like, I understand that, you know what I mean, like, you know, like people like this formulaic shit because they can't really have conversations because they don't have the goddamn ability to just have an in general conversation, right? Like two fucking, I don't know, human goddamn beings and shit. But let's be honest here, all right? Like, yo, this dude is just in general terrible.
Well, it's like you're calling black people inferior. It's like you're saying they're genetically inferior. That's what people are saying. It's like you're rationalizing the disparity of outcomes by reference to the intrinsic inferiority of black people. If you say cognitive ability matters for social outcomes, if you say cognitive ability exists, people really are different in terms of their intellectual functioning. And if you say cognitive ability differences are substantial between racially defined populations, the sum of that, there is cognitive ability, it matters, and it differs by race, is the conclusion that outcome differences by race are in part due to natural differences between the populations. People find that to be completely offensive and unacceptable. So that's what I think is going on.
Now, most of y'all who watch my channel, you have every idea of what I think about this mentality, right? You know, I'm not, you know, I mean, a huge fan of Nazis. I'm not a huge fan of white supremacy or, you know, I mean, fucking racist nonsense when it comes down to it. But there are like certain truths in life, right? You know, they say if, you know, I mean, like you were going to sit here and like have individuals running like Europe or the world or whatever, you would go, all right, I'd put the British in charge of the government, right? I'd have the Germans building the bridges and I'd have the Italians cater, right? Like, yo, because certain individuals do things really well and some individuals don't do things other well. Like that's just how it operates, right? And some people are known for certain things. Now, that's not to say that, like, you know, in places like Northern Italy where like they're the highest value added products in the world, you know what I mean? Like, you know, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Prada, all these type of things, you know, Bugatti, like all these really, really beautiful pieces of engineering, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to have outliers in these groups where they're not going to stand here. You're not going to have these individuals like ever have the ability to like do what other people do. That's not how this works, right? You're going to have outliers in every group, and whether it be, you know, I mean, people in Central Africa or individuals in the Middle East or people in India, you're going to have smart people like exist. Like they have, I think Machiavelli said it. He said, like poor people make intelligent kids as much as, you know, I mean, like rich individuals do, right? Like that the ability of individuals to like have smart people, you know what I mean, and have the opportunity to have them or like to stand here and have like really intelligent human beings isn't locked to your social stratus or your race or anything. It is nature, right? And that's kind of important to understand. And this is how you explain this as a human fucking being, right? This is how you have this conversation. You don't stand here and make excuses the way this motherfucker's gonna. But let's keep rocking.
Can you steel man that case that we should be careful doing that kind of research?
Who is this dude looking at? Is there like a CIA handler there, like going, like, man, like who is this guy fucking staring at? Like, why is he looking at like this other person going, I'm doing it right. Watch me do this. I'm gonna do it right. Like, what the fuck is this shit?
So this has to do with research. It's like the Nazis used Nietzsche in their propaganda, right? You can use white supremacists could use conclusions, cherry pick conclusions of studies to push their agenda. Can you steel man the case that we should be careful?
Yeah, I could do it at 3 levels. One is, what do we mean by cognitive ability? So there's many different kinds of intelligence a person might say. How good are IQ tests at measuring other kinds of human capacities that are pertinent to success in life, like temperament, like emotional intelligence, and so on. So
Yeah, why? Why does like women and black people and college educated fucks go to emotional intelligence? Why? Because I've had these conversations before where women go, "Oh well, emotional intelligence is important." Now, look, I'm be real. As a leader, okay, as a manager, as somebody who has to like deal with other people, emotional intelligence is highly the fuck important. All right, being able to like notice how you have to deal with other people is an important thing, right? But it's not an intelligence. It's not something that you naturally have. That's something that's built into you through like your cognitive motherfucking upbringing and shit. It's called cognitive development. When it comes down to it, it's like basically, if you take a baby when they're born, right, and you feed it intravenously, you put it in a dark room and you don't fuck with it for 4 years. By the time that kid's 4, he will be deaf, dumb, and blind and will never motherfucking walk, right? Because all of the neurons that were supposed to like be able to be formed through those years need stimuli in order to be able to like, be used. That's like kind of how that operates, right? So with that being said, when you're coming up through emotional intelligence, as they put it, is something that you learn how to deal with other people through outside stimuli, right? That's not something that you just have a capacity for as a human being, right? Because everybody has this. And the problem is, like, we have a lot of like kids now who are coming up like what they would call autistic, but that's mostly because they're online most of their lives, like they're single children, like they're children who didn't have any brothers or sisters, they didn't have cousins, and they didn't have a whole lot of interaction as pups other than being in school, and they were very, very sheltered, right? So this is where like this mentality of like, oh, emotional intelligence. Now this is what females say. This is the dumbest fucking argument ever, right? Legit. And this is the problem. Like when we stand here and we put forward like black voices in our community, like I always say, like Thomas Sowell, if he was a white person, none of us would ever pay attention to him. Like there's none of us, like we wouldn't care, right? Legit, right? And the only reason we do care is because he's black, right? And he's not like all wokety woke nonsensical gibberish, because like his books and his writing, if you compare them to other works as a whole, they're very solipsistic and they're very simplistic, right? They're not, fixed with massive amounts of math and, like real actual work, right? And I understand the need for these type of things, right? When you're having a conversation in places like high schools and maybe colleges, because, they're young kids and they don't really know shit at all. So you're getting them the basics. But like if you compare Thomas Sowell to somebody like, say, even like Mark Blythe, like Mark Blythe mentions things in passing, like the equation for what's it called? The equation for like basic economics that like moved throughout history, which is when you went from the period of the gold standard to when we moved into Keynesian economics and shit. And he like the measurement of like R versus G and all these type of things, right? And there's all these like giant equations that, Sowell never really mentions. And this is important to understand because like I don't like talking to tokenized individuals. I like talking to individuals because, they're in general decent human beings, right? When it comes down to it. But the truth is that like things like emotional intelligence aren't real, right? They're not like a real fucking measure of intelligence as a whole, because like the measure is, and this is the problem, is like, yo, what are you measuring for, right? Like, what are you looking at? So if you're looking at emotional, or you're looking at like IQ, what you're looking at is your ability to be able to retain knowledge long term and be able to take that knowledge and apply it so that you can stand here and do things like build drones or cars or houses, or, you know what I mean, like figure out complex like problems. That's what IQ is about, right? And emotional intelligence has nothing to do with that. So if you want the guys who are able to like make your like society like function, where, you know, they're going to set up your infrastructure, you want individuals who are able to solve complex problems and give zero fucks about how individuals feel emotionally, because it just in general doesn't matter. That's what IQ's about in the end of the day, right? And this is why like this disparity, you know what I mean, kind of comes into play. Because if what you're trying to measure for is like government bureaucrats or individuals who can work in an office and be able to advertise the individual, sure, emotional intelligence is important. But, and this is a big but, if you want individuals to be able to build you like airplanes and like fucking, you know what I mean, machines, or, you know, like you want them to be able to stand here and, you know, build you roads and bridges that are not going to fall down, you don't give a fuck about emotional intelligence. You want an individual with a high IQ who's able to grasp concept, you know what I mean, large concepts and apply them, you know what I mean, in the real world. That's why racial disparity with IQ is really important, because when you're talking about setting up societies, that's a big thing. Right now, you're going to need a guy with a high emotional IQ to be able to like, you know, manage these people, right? You know what I mean? To like put all this shit into like works, because you're going to need a leader. You need somebody who's able to go, hey, look, you know what I mean? I can do this for you and make all this work. And then he's going to have to go hire guys who are intelligent enough to make shit happen. Because the truth is that the super duper high IQ guys, short of like guys working for like Goldman Sachs, right, aren't the individuals who are like running things, right? They're not like your top leadership, right? I mean, like you can't, you know, like you can't stand here and say like, trying to think here, like guys like Larry Page or fucking, who's that guy who, Jamie Dimon, right? Like if you ever read like their fucking shit, like these guys legitimately, like they have like book clubs you can join, right? And like they fucking read super heavy duty, really dense shit that's unbelievably complicated. But the reason they do is because, you know, they're high IQ motherfuckers in a high IQ field running high IQ individuals, right? And it's why it is that like everybody goes, oh, some conspiracy. Like, no, they're just fucking really goddamn smart, right? And they're trying to solve very, very complex problems for a very large amount of people so that the entire economy continues to function, right? And that's why, like, you don't see a lot of dark faces in these places. Like, yo, it is what it is. Now, you're going to see people like Indians, right? Because there's like a billion of them. And like, you know, they stand here and make it out one by one, right? And they're chosen to be able to come here, not just through the lottery system, but by like applying to like companies who are willing to bring them over because they've shown their worth, right? And, you know, when you have a billion people, that's a lot of pressure to be able to make a diamond. It's how that operates, right? So it is what it is. Yo, look. I'm going to end this here. This is Tom Pease with Pnoid News. Y'all know how it works, man. Like, share, and subscribe. And like, yo, please, can everybody stop fucking watching Lex Fridman?